A shift in work culture is opening up a huge new opportunities for hotels. What is it, and how can hotels capitalize on this emerging new segment of business? I've invited seasoned commercial strategist Daniel Melnyk to help shed some light on this exciting new area of growth. Check it out. So, hey, Dan. Happy Friday. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Really excited to spend a few minutes today about something super exciting that we've been talking about. Kind of a whole new type of business at hotels that you and I have seen. We don't see a whole lot of people talking about this. So thank you for spending a few minutes on the Instinct show here today.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. And, happy St. Patrick's Day from Philly.
Right.
I'm, looking forward to a wild night out tonight. Just kidding about that. But, I think it is a really cool new segment of, I don't know if we want to put it under group travel umbrella, but I think it's an emerging segment that, hotel sales managers and sales teams, I'm hoping we can illuminate it for them today and really have, help some of them have that aha moment so that they can go hit the ground running and start prospecting and looking at how they can bring this into their assets.
Yeah, fantastic. So basic first question, what is it anyways?
Oh, that's $1 million question. So, I think it's this, you originally posed it to me as pop-up office work, but what I see it as is kind of like a hybrid of a corporate retreat and a working session or a collaboration session. So, if we were going to define it, I think it's a lot of smaller companies or maybe medium-sized companies that have gone into either a, complete remote or very heavy hybrid working style, where their teams are remote deployed in the field and they don't necessarily come together on a, weekly basis or have, shared overlap time in the office. And so I think what it really looks like is, a group that's coming together, from different cities, different places to really get work done together. And it's the type of work that I think would traditionally be done over the course of, your usual business week, if you were all in the same office, but, with sort of the pandemic and, just generationally and societal shifts in the way we work, I think that people are still craving that, get together and work through things together. But how do we create the space, or where is the space, the physical space, that they're going to go and do that work together? And I think this is creating an interesting opportunity for hotels.
I totally agree. And I'm not sure if I mentioned too, I found out about it because I see a lot of the direct inquiries we're seeing from our properties. And so I can educate myself. I think I've mentioned too, I've never worked at a hotel. So it's been, there's been definitely some aha moments.
You fake it well.
Oh, well, thank you. I had some great people like you to help share some really great insights. And it's been amazing to learn about a lot of this. So I've been educating, I'm reading a lot of the inquiries that are coming through. And not only is it the questions like, hey, we have a team out there. Some of them never met before. We want to bring our teams together. We're looking for combinations. We're looking for, some things that we can do to team build, some restaurant opportunities, that type of thing. And by the way, I'm an executive assistant. I've never planned a meeting before, and I really need help. Can you guys help me? So I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's been more than just several times. I've seen this trend coming, and I've even asked our teams, like, is this unusual? And it's like, well, it's kind of a brand new requirement. And so that gave me an opportunity to kind of reach out to you, since you knew so much about this industry, and having you you brought some amazing points during our conversation. So how is this coming about? I know you talked about the remote, but do you see this as a new trend?
I do think it's a new trend, but maybe not necessarily like a trend. I think it's a shift. I think this is not something that's going to come in and out of fashion. I think this might be sort of more here to stay. I think there are a lot of companies, small, medium, and large, and very large, that have gone to, either remote first or very much a hybrid workforce, work style. I think that more flexible way of work is just going to stay for a very long time. And I think that with the innovation we're seeing, in technology and a lot of the emerging companies that are coming out right now, these are companies that are looking at, they don't have office leases and overhead, they don't have legacy office space, so they're charting a new course where they're going, hey, how do we want to work? We're a startup where we've got new ideas, we're conquering the world and changing the planet. So what do we want work to look like? And I think that for a lot of people, travel is really, really important to them and they want to do it. And, I think a lot of companies are taking the conscious decision to hire the best talent regardless of the geography. So you have some of these, sort of trends or, in my opinion, really shifts towards a much more, geographically deployed workforce. And that creates a need for people to come together. If you think about why, the importance of, why we meet and how, the connections are formed and, the work that can get done, the relationships that can get built, you can't do that the same way over Zoom. And I think, there's always an argument to say like, hey, there's distractions in the office, but there are certain things that you just can't replicate over Zoom. You don't have those casual drive-bys or those, water cooler conversations where ideas are exchanged, things are built on, you have to be so much more deliberate and intentional digitally. And I think that that's where, when you bring people together, you can open up some of those doors and really foster that innovation in a team.
That's a really, really great point. As a hotel salesperson, why should they care right now?
I think they should care because I think this is going to be a really lucrative segment. I think that there are certain segments of business that we haven't seen come back. Some of the really large pieces of business we used to have maybe aren't necessarily coming back to us full force yet. I think that depending on what market you're in, if you're in a market that would appeal to companies or buyers that would have the profile of working like this and wanting to book this type of program into a hotel, you could probably make bank on this for a while before your comp set wakes up to it. And so I think it's really cool. And I think also too, there's some nice, like from a revenue management perspective, you've got some nice, ancillary revenue opportunities, especially if you're a property that has a lot of programming, whether it's resort amenities or spa, or maybe you've got multiple dining outlets. These types of programs I see as being more than just rooms and meeting room rental. You've got some good F&B spend, some potential ancillary spend, activity revenues. So there's, or if you're even an urban property that has, really cool activations like, live music, art, things like that. I think there's an opportunity to, really drive traffic through some of those things and probably really positively impact revenue. And I think some of this stuff has a really short booking window. So if you have need periods coming up quickly, there's an opportunity to fill them. I think some of this stuff could be highly date flexible because you're dealing with smaller groups. We're not talking moving 400 people for a sales kickoff. We're talking moving 10, 20 people, 30 people maybe for a working collaborative session. And that becomes a lot more nimble for a planner. And, as a hotelier, if you're good at, sort of massaging it into the dates you need, that could be very lucrative to you as well. So I think there's a number of different things that could be kind of cool here. And, if you can carve that out for yourself ahead of your comp set, you're going to have a competitive advantage for a while.
I completely agree. One of the other benefits I thought was very interesting in understanding why group travel is so important in hospitality. It's that consistency, right? Once you have that on the books, you've got that base set. And one of the things I thought was very interesting is some of these inquiries were saying, we're thinking about having these sessions quarterly, like every third week of the month, and almost like clockwork. And it's like, wow, thinking about the opportunities that hotels could capture to get even more consistent business on the books.
Absolutely. And I think that the potential for repeat is very strong. People, especially when it comes to something like this, where, we're coming for the purpose of working and collaborating, getting things done. There's value in some familiarity. And I think if the hotel offers a really great experience to those customers, and makes them feel valued, as a smaller group, or smaller customer, sometimes it's a little bit, you don't necessarily feel the same love as, maybe a major third party planner does or something like that. So I think there's a real opportunity for, hotels to shine, drive that experience, loyalty, and, from a cost perspective, if you acquire the customer once and they start to repeat, that's really great. And depending on where it is, maybe there's some additional opportunity for you coming from this. So let's say, for example, you find a local tech company that's, growing, and, they want to bring some of the remote team into your city, which is their, HQ city, if you will. You might get this sort of piece of, working group business this time, but maybe you can carve out an individual corporate travel or, business transient rate from them over time. As they grow, you might be their partner that they grow with. So, there is a relationship to be fostered for the long term.
I love that whole concept of stickiness, and hotels leverage the opportunity of almost saying, hey, this is your hotel. Even like that familiarity you were just talking about. They know they know the learning curve of the physical structure and who the team people are at the hotel. It really, I think, brings that homeliness to almost an office environment that you don't necessarily had before. So I love that. Absolutely. So any hotels that are listening to this going, oh, wow, this sounds like an amazing opportunity. We haven't really thought about it. How could they take advantage of that?
Oh, well, I think it's an opportunity that they're going to need to create. So, this is not necessarily going to be something that falls in your lap. I think they need to, I think as a sales manager, be on the lookout for it, because like you said, you have customers who are, hotel customers that are receiving these types of inbound leads. But I think we need to be very open-minded and really look critically at these leads as they're coming in and go, is this a traditional piece of group business where, we're having a normal bog standard group? Is this a typical, talking head at the front of a room, set, with banquet rounds, or is this a collaborative working session? Is this a team that's coming together with different objectives than just, speaking? And so I think when we look at a program, be looking for those signals in that RFP, and then also have a conversation with the planner. Pick up the phone. It makes you money. Phone someone and say, like, why are you getting together? What's this all about? And in some cases, you'll see that these are not seasoned buyers. These are people that are planners off the side of their desk. They might be an HR business partner. They might be a sales leader. They may be an EA to a startup CEO. They may be a chief of staff. They may be somebody who, is just been tasked with this because they're enthusiastic about bringing a team together. Wow. And so, asking them about their job role and asking them about what's really the purpose of this, and, getting into some of the why is going to be really powerful in how you tailor that sell and how you present your space, because they're probably not looking for, a general session. They're probably looking for something that's going to be a lot more collaborative and is going to help facilitate getting work product, achieved, as opposed to, just sort of a dump of information or, corporate pep rally kind of thing.
Good point. Great point. You had mentioned too, you recently went to an HSMAI event in Colorado. You had some lights that went off because you were walking through this property, and it looks like they had been already set up or something like that. Not sure if they were aware of it or not, but to me, that sounded like an exceptional example of what we're even talking about. So could you shed a little bit more detail on what you had saw and experienced, and maybe the type of things that hotels need to do to prepare and to be able to facilitate this type of business?
Absolutely. So, you and I were having this conversation, as we were preparing for this and really talking about the meat and potatoes of it. And, one of the things that I think we talked a lot about was, the physical plant and, where is the meeting going to take place? What are some of the things that are, physical assets or attributes of a property that are going to help to facilitate this type of gathering? And, we were at the lodge at Flying Horse down in Colorado Springs, and Jeff Howell, the director of sales and marketing for the property, was taking us on a site inspection after the end. And, it just so happened, we walked into this one meeting room, and, Jeff's talking about, the natural light and all the standard stuff that we as sales managers sell to. But then he started to talk about the furniture. And you think about it, when was the last time as a seller you really talked about your banquet furniture? I mean, my 6-foot table looks the same as your 6-foot table, looks the same as your 6-foot table. They're all wood, they're all really heavy, and they're all covered with linen. But Jeff was really pointing out some of the differences. And so they had these really nice, sort of laminate tops, sort of classroom tables on wheels, super modular. They could be assembled and rolled around by a team. So, if you think about a team gathering to have a working session, and I think about this even in our company and probably, for Cory, you and within your team, people want to spread out, move tables around, as the day goes on. You don't want to be fixed in a really standard environment. To go on, it was like, these tables aren't covered in linen. So they're laminate. They're really easy to write on. They were electronically networked. So, everybody had their own USB port and power port right in front of their laptop. And so all these little things that I'm like, this is what we tend to expect more out of our workspace than a traditional hotel meeting space. And then he went on to highlight the furniture, and I think they were, I can't remember the brand, whether they had Human Form or Herman Miller chairs or something like that, but they were a true ergonomic office chair on wheels, very adjustable. And, I thought about it, I was like, these are all the things that would contribute to a more productive day. These are things that we look at when we're furnishing workspaces and offices, not necessarily traditional meeting rooms. And so those were some of the things that I was like, this would be really ideal. If I was going to spend 7 or 8 hours with the team working through things and, collaborating, this type of setup and furniture would be so much more conducive to the type of program I think people in this segment would be looking for than, a traditional banquet round, covered in linen that's difficult to write on, and, traditional banquet chair, great for a gala dinner. Not necessarily, for spending a day over your laptop in. So, it was just kind of one of those coincidental type of, experiences. But I thought, this is ideal for this segment. And I think that as hoteliers, if we have tools and assets like that, we need to sell into those in the right time and place, with the right type of customer.
Absolutely. As you had mentioned, that type of furniture or that type of setup is not the norm. So for hotels that are like, wow, yeah, this sounds incredibly interesting, I'm assuming most properties are set up, obviously more full service, more so than others, but with some tweaks with the existing furniture that they have, and maybe some program and a few other things. I would assume it wouldn't be such a daunting task to begin to attract that type of business, would it?
I really don't think it would. And I don't think, I'm not saying you need to go out and spend tens of thousands of dollars on, new office type furniture for your meeting spaces. I think it's just looking at it with a different lens of, how does a day in this type of business work? Like, what does the customer want? How does their day unfold? How does their team use the physical space? And think about yourself, how do you as a team work? What would make your workday better? And you think about things like, WeWorks and, other, cool co-working environments, what are they putting in those spaces to create the right physical, sort of physical plant nature to collaborate? And I think, you'd be surprised how easy you can make it if you just kind of take off the preconceived notion of, well, you either want classroom or you want U-shape. Maybe that's not what they want, or maybe they don't even know what a U-shape is. Maybe they don't know what classroom is, because they're not a professional planner. And that's where, having that visioning conversation with the planner or the client can really be helpful. And then you get to put your creative hat on and say, hey, I think we should set it up like this. Or, even putting something as simple as, I worked with one hotel and we had a great L-shaped meeting space. And it was really conducive to kind of a full day working session, but you could have, cocktails and networking in one part of it. So, everyone, when they go on their coffee break and go hang out at, high top tables, maybe you have some lounge furniture in another area. So over lunch, after, people can go sit and have sidebar conversations. And then you have your meeting area all in the same space. Maybe you don't need to break out into other rooms, things like that. I think it's just really getting creative and, visioning it with your planner. Oh
man, good stuff. Good stuff. We are going to have a follow-up on this. In fact, I've already crafted some more questions to dive deeper. We're just scratching the surface. Just thought we'd do a quick overview. I really appreciate your time, Dan. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you.